are.
Welcome, everyone.
Beautiful people coming in.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Heather. It's a beautiful day to be gathering together. Hi, Erin.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome.
So I am Veronica now. I'm a coach for public speaking and leadership. And I love Purium. It really helps my clients. It helps me create the biggest transformation of my life. And Kathryn and I also do online ministry. And we find that Purium is a really pivotal component to being able to be clear with conversation with God. And we do Alive in the Word together. So this is Alive in the Word featuring our special guest, Sarah Brandow. And we are your hosts today.
Kathryn. Yes. Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Kathryn Brown, and I am super grateful for all of you to be here today. We have a very special guest. Her name is Sarah, and she is a world-renowned nutritionist and a director of nutrition at Accelerator. And we are excited to have her here today to talk about gut health and the importance of it and what we can do to support our guts and everything around it. So welcome, Sarah. Welcome to this call. And we're so grateful to have you here today. And I guess you're in Europe right now?
I am. I'm in Czech Republic right now.
Amazing. Well, thank you. We would love to just have you introduce yourself and just really dive into it. Like we can get right into the importance of gut health and your expertise on that.
Sure. So thank you so much for the introduction and thank you for having me. This is obviously a topic that I'm super passionate about. So thanks everyone for joining, and hi to everyone who's going to watch the replay of this. So I've been a nutritionist. I graduated from a master's of science in 2014, but I had already started on my wellness journey before that by drastically changing my diet and realizing.
Hold on, we'll just get the mute. Yep. Thank you.
No problem. I realized in my early 20s that I wasn't thriving, even eating what I was told I should be eating. And I dove deeper into the world of nutrition. And then I discovered that even on a perfect diet, if somebody doesn't have the gut health to actually absorb the nutrients from their food, they are not going to thrive. And so ever since then, I have been extremely passionate about the microbiome and about the gut. If anyone follows me on Instagram, I made kind of a controversial post yesterday that got a lot of traction about carnivore diets. And I said that individuals who go to these diets, and a carnivore diet, to be clear, is one where people do not eat fiber. They do not eat any vegetables. They can't digest these foods. And I said that people are being drawn to these diets simply because they don't have the bacteria and the strength of their microbiome and the diversity to break down a wide variety of plants. And so instead of being so radical and eliminating all plant foods from our diet, I want to empower people to really get to the root cause, because through all of human history, if we weren't able to digest whatever plants were around, we would not have made it so far in our evolution. We are supposed to be resilient. The longest lived populations on the planet in the blue zones, they have some of the greatest diversity in their microbiome, 2 to 3, even 4 times the amount of strains of the average American. So how do we get more strains? And that's what I'm going to share. So I have some slides, and I'm going to chat also about the importance too of not only recultivating your microbiome, but also the importance of choosing any products, any supplements, any superfoods that also are going to help you on that mission. Because a lot of times you can buy something and it sounds really good, but do they have a COA, a certificate of analysis? Are you sure there's no heavy metals? Are you sure there's no glyphosate? And I'm going to talk about glyphosate too. So this isn't very long, but it's something that I really love to share about because it changed my life. Even as a nutritionist, I was able to reverse a severe gluten intolerance, like eyelid eczema, face rashes, bloating for days. None of that happens to me anymore. Not that I suggest going out and crushing a lot of gluten, especially in America, but it's important to know that your body won't react so strongly when you do, and that you have that resiliency. So as human beings, my mission is to help us become more resilient. So first and foremost, something that people ask me a lot as a nutritionist is, do we even need supplements? I want to get everything from food. And I wish that we could. The best alternative is getting it from food-based supplements, because that is food. It's just dehydrated. Why we are not thriving on a perfect diet from the grocery store is due to a few things. So one is soil depletion, then transport. So about 30%, or even I've heard up to 40% of nutrients are lost in the first few days of travel. I'm going to get into that. Modern growing methods, which do not support the way the plant is supposed to grow and start to actually cultivate all those nutrients. Plants are picked way too soon and they are gas ripened on a truck. Poor gut health as a result of depleted soil, antibiotic use, glyphosate, which I'm going to chat about, and foods just being picked too soon, and high stress levels, believe it or not. The last one is one that some people think they can't control, but actually the healthier your microbiome is, the easier it is to deal with these stresses. So this is an article that was published in Scientific American in 2011. So this is a 12-year-old article now, and this was already a huge concern back then. And I can assure you that pesticide use has gotten worse in the last 12 years. Because of soil depletion, crops decades ago were much richer in vitamins and minerals than the varieties most of us get today. The loophole is, if you're fortunate enough, like we are, to experience Purium superfoods, you can actually still get foods that are still extremely rich in vitamins and minerals, but it's all about the soil. It's about how they were grown. Most produce loses 30%, and I've seen studies that even showed up to 40% 3 days after harvest. So they also have to transport it all the way to grocery stores. And University of California found that some vegetables can lose 15 to 55% of vitamin C, just to give one example, within a week. So the solution to this is to try things that are raw and solar dehydrated, because they've been dehydrated fresh right when they were picked. So the nutrients are still going to be there. You're still going to actually be able to assimilate and absorb them. The key is, once you add water, you want to drink it within 15 minutes to 20 minutes to get the most fresh enzymes. This one also from Scientific American, the Cushy Institute found that average calcium levels in vegetables dropped, think about it, between 1975 to 1997, 20% drop in iron. Imagine today. I haven't been able to find any data. If anyone has something more up to date, I have a feeling that there's a reason that's not very easy to find, and it wouldn't be good news. So you'd have to eat 8 oranges today, basically, to get the same amount of vitamin A that your grandparents would have gotten from 1. And with that, unfortunately, in the modern food system, you're also getting way more sugar. If you got all that from 1 orange and now you have to eat 8, plus the modern varieties now are being cultivated to be sweeter. There's nothing wrong with fruit sugars, and I don't want to scare people off of fruit sugars. However, there's a very, very big difference between having a healthy, balanced diet and having things in excess, and also eating fruit varieties that were cultivated to be very different than what our ancestors would have consumed. Here's some stats. I'm not going to read them all, but I think it's important. If anyone wants to go back, I can share these slides later. But most Americans are deficient in most things. Magnesium is a really big one that isn't on here, actually. Some sites say it's over 80%. And all of this compounds, because if you're deficient in magnesium and you take synthetic vitamin D supplements, guess what? You can actually create toxicity in the body. So the way to not have to play domino effect, same with zinc. It's another one I like to talk about. If you're taking isolated synthetic zinc, what can happen is, if you're taking that constantly in high doses, you're going to throw off your zinc copper balance. You can affect your iron, you can affect your B12, the dominoes fall. The way around this is food-based supplementation. It is safer, and I'm always in favor as a health professional of the lowest risk intervention. And in this case, the lowest risk intervention is also the best because of the bioavailability of taking things in their natural form. So I'm a big fan of getting your vitamins and your minerals and even your plant-based zinc from plants, straight from the source. The rise of monoculture is one of the biggest threats to human health because so much of the supplement industry as well is using this. So monoculture is when you plow down an entire diverse area. It could have been a forest, a field, and you plant rows and rows and rows of the same thing. So this was mostly for animal agriculture, most of the corn, soybeans, wheat in the United States. But now also we're seeing rises of things like pea protein. So a lot of major supplement companies are actually using monoculture in order to create very low quality protein powders, which means they're spraying these with glyphosate, the toxic GMO herbicide I'm going to talk about, and that has a negative effect on the microbiome. They're also doing this now for a lot of plant-based foods. Think of things like chickpeas, lentils, oats, and all of these foods. What's happening is you could be eating a really, really healthy diet, but if all of your food is soaked in glyphosate, you are not going to be thriving. You're not going to absorb nutrients as well. It's going to cause intestinal permeability, potentially leaky gut. And in very, very high doses, the individuals who actually spray and work with this chemical have been diagnosed with different types of cancers. And so this is one of the biggest crises in the world right now, and that is the destruction of our food system and of our microbiomes. So by first and foremost trying to support organic farmers and organic farms wherever possible, you're going to eliminate a lot of the risk of glyphosate, and also detoxing it safely, which I'm going to talk about as well. Natural supplements, as I mentioned, many can be dangerously contaminated, so you have to be very, very careful. The production site where a supplement is made is extremely important. Don't take for granted that just because it says that it's organic or food-based, that it's necessarily pure. You always want to ask for that certificate of analysis that I mentioned to prove that a product actually contains what it says it does. And a lot of supplement companies don't have this, which is shocking to me, because if you have a supplement company, you have one job, and that's to sell what you tell people you are selling. And so if a company cannot back up their claims and their ingredients and their purity with a certificate of analysis, do not order from them. So whenever people DM me and they're like, hey, can you review this brand or this product, right away, I'm like, where's the COA? Let's start with that. If they don't have it and they won't share it, do not purchase from that company. We have to create change in the industry, and transparency is the only way it is going to happen. Lead, cadmium, arsenic, mercury, these are neurotoxins that people usually know from finding them in fish, but a lot of these are actually in protein powders. You have to be very, very careful. And I don't want to fearmonger here, but this is just the reality. But the good news is, even if you have been consuming some protein powders, some supplements, some glyphosate-laden foods, the human body is so resilient once you give it the tools to actually heal. And that's what we're chatting about today. So first and foremost, make the swaps here and there. Make sure you're not consuming products that you're spending a lot of money on for your health that are actually degrading your health, and then actually start detoxing glyphosate. I mentioned synthetic vitamins as well, how they're isolated, created in the lab, and they mimic natural vitamins. So the vitamin D is that's commonly used. A lot of that comes actually from a petroleum byproduct. So these things, it's not that they have absolutely no use. They can be used in interventions for the very short term for people who are extremely deficient, but they always come with an inflammatory side effect. And some of them are actually very harmful. Many of them are just expensive pee. You're just urinating it right out again. It's a complete waste. So it makes so much more sense to actually invest your time, do a little bit of research, and figure out what will actually nourish you from the inside out. These are just some very bleak stats on protein powder and heavy metal contaminations. So of 130 brands tested in this study, 40% have elevated levels of heavy metals. And 1 in 10 whey protein brands have lead, which is extremely, extremely dangerous and should not be in our food system. I don't think I need to talk too much to anyone about the dangers of lead, but plant-based protein powders as well. A lot of people used to be, including myself many years ago, under the belief that if it was a plant-based protein powder, that it would be safer because the animal agriculture industry has a lot more contaminants, but that isn't always true. A lot of them with rice protein, for example, can have high amounts of arsenic. So always do your research. I can't emphasize enough, get that COA. Also, I want to explain that all metals are not equally harmful. Some are just naturally occurring. So you will not find any protein powder in the world that has 0 levels of heavy metals, just like, rice and anything grown in the ground. So I don't want to also scare you that if there's a little bit, the idea is to consume things within the levels that are deemed safe. And that means that your body is able to easily excrete those, assuming you're consuming the recommended dose in a day. It's not going to build up. It's not going to cause toxicity in the body if you stay within the recommended serving size. 90% of vitamins that were tested, these were from Amazon, contained 1 or more of the following. So this list here is just some common ones, but petroleum byproducts. Actually, this is shocking to people. This is where most vitamins are sourced from. And believe it or not, it's not even the petroleum that is the most harmful part. It's the solvents and the chemicals they use in the extraction and the manufacturing process. And that residue actually will affect your body. It will affect your cellular health. It'll affect your mitochondria and all of these things. Carrageenan is a really common one in different plant-based supplements. I've seen it in omega-3s. That is inflammatory for the microbiome, and that can cause harm in the long term as well. So this is what you're going to be looking for when you are taking supplements. You want ingredient authenticity. This is what the COA should have, not just heavy metals. So authenticity is just prove it has what it says it has. I think I read a study, and it was melatonin supplements from Amazon, and over 30% of them weren't even within 10% of the listed dosage, and also had other random ingredients and active ingredients as well that were not listed. Pesticide and glyphosate testing. Glyphosate is that toxic GMO herbicide. And of course, things like E. coli, Salmonella, staph, and shelf life. Shelf life as well is important because some companies might be selling products that are not within an approved shelf life for that particular item. And sometimes it's a very, very, very expired product. So you want to watch out for that as well. As I mentioned, it's impossible to grow food in soil with nutrients that will have zero presence of metals. So the idea isn't to avoid this altogether. It's to find safe products and also to strengthen our bodies so that a little bit of stressors are not going to scare us and they're not going to really affect us. Also, the manufacturing and environmental contaminants that come from certain companies and their processes can leave a lot of unwanted metals and other substances in the final product. So it's also very important to know where your products are made. So this is a list of Purium. This is the company that I suggest to all of the people that I work with, all of my clients, patients from the clinic looking to heal their microbiome, because this list here, you see, that's a certificate of analysis for all of the products. Some companies also will get you having a COA for one product, and then you want to see what else, and they don't have it, and they kind of get a free pass because they have one. So here's an amazing list. If you want to see exactly what is in everything, you can check that out, and you can verify not only that it contains what it says it contains, but also you can check for glyphosate, you can check for heavy metals, and you can check for purity and expiry. How does this all play into gut health? Well, the healthiest individuals, they are eating an average of 30 plants per week. And why? Because your cells that comprise your immune system, 70 to 80% of them, they live in your gut. And what do they eat? Fiber. They eat plants. If you starve them by eating, for example, only meat, only processed foods, then you are starving the very bacteria within you that give you life, they give you immunity, they give you strength. You need to feed them and take care of them. And in turn, they will take care of you. So that's your daily food choices, your lifestyle, your supplement choices. They're literally determining not only your immunity and resiliency, like I wrote here, but your hormonal balance, your mood. You can tell when somebody is nourished by looking at them. Somebody could have, all the greatest claims in the world about a certain product and say it does this and this and this and this. And if they're using it every day, just look at them. Do they radiate health? Is that somebody who's practicing what they preach? And so for me, when I look to individuals for health advice, the individuals who introduced me to this company were extremely radiant and extremely healthy. And so, of course, I did some further digging, and the science lined up in many, many ways. There's a lot of clinical evidence for the efficacy of these products. And you see the glow. Look at the ladies hosting this meeting, right? So you see the glow, and that's not something that can be faked. The other thing is actual absorption of nutrients. So if your microbiome is damaged, we have these little things, the intestinal villi, tiny little hairs in the small intestine that actually help us to break down nutrients from food. We have certain bacteria that are fiber eaters. You eat the fiber, hopefully you chewed it first, otherwise they can't do their job. And they come in, they eat the fiber, they leave you with the nutrients. What happens when your gut is full of glyphosate? It acts like a mild antibiotic. This is one of the most toxic herbicides, and it was introduced because farmers found that when it was sprayed on a field, it killed absolutely everything. So they started creating crops that were resistant to it. And this was the beginning of genetically modified crops taking over the food system. You plant a whole field of GMO corn, you make the seed Roundup ready, and the most toxic chemicals can be sprayed on this field, but that crop is resilient to it and that crop will not die. And unfortunately, this is what's being fed to most farm animals. It's in a lot of plant-based protein powders. They're using glyphosate for pea protein, and it acts like a mild antibiotic and is extremely harmful to the human microbiome. Over 55% of the different types of beneficial bacteria in our microbiome can be decimated and very negatively affected by glyphosate. One of the most interesting things I read about the approval process for this horrible, horrible compound was that the company Monsanto, who created it, now owned by Bayer, when they were getting approvals, when you are putting something in the market for home use, because you can buy this at the store, you can spray it in your own yard, it'll kill the weeds. It has to not contain a level of toxins that will permeate the skin and do a lot of damage. So what they did is they were testing Monsanto in their clinical studies. They were testing Roundup on cadavers. Cadavers are dead bodies donated to science. And they found that unfortunately glyphosate did permeate through the skin and the toxicity levels were way too high. So what did they do to get approved? They put the cadavers in the freezer and they took them out and they put the Roundup on them again. And sure enough, it did not permeate. And they were able to pass some tests to sell it to human beings that are very much not dead and very much not frozen to spray on their own yards. And so individuals who've been working with Roundup as part of their jobs as gardeners, farmers, have been suing. And unfortunately, this title here, Roundup maker to pay $10 billion to settle cancer suits, they're actually appealing and they might win. That is how corrupted our food system is at this point. So the individual who is supposed to get one of the biggest payouts might get almost nothing at all. So what we can do to fight back against this system is not to keep trying to sue the biggest criminals and the wealthiest corporations on the planet. It's to simply do everything within our power to not support them. Support the organic farmers, buy local, support people who are doing the right thing. That is all the power that we have in this world, and we can only do our very best. This is how you get rid of it. This is how I found Purium. And this is, to me, one of the most important products, and I don't say this lightly, in the world right now, because it is the only one with a clinical trial to prove that it actually detoxifies glyphosate from the gut by about 74% in 6 weeks. And CRP, C-reactive protein, that's an inflammatory biomarker we look for in the blood to see how inflamed somebody is if they're a patient somewhere. It's non-specific, doesn't tell me why you're inflamed. I don't know if you're an insomniac or if you have Lyme disease or whatever it is, but the fact that this product was able to reduce CRP by an average of 75% in 6 weeks, regardless of the source, really tells you the importance of healing the microbiome and pulling out glyphosate, because that now armored these individuals to actually detoxify themselves and to lower inflammation everywhere else in the body too. So this is by and large one of the most important products in the world, and it has absolutely changed the life of many, many people I've worked with, myself included. And this is probably one of the main reasons now why if I'm in Rome and I want to crush a pizza, I can do that and my face doesn't peel anymore. And the more important thing is our cellular health, our mitochondrial function, and our ability to thrive and push back against these corporations that are poisoning us. The other one that I really like as part of my daily routine, tart cherry juice concentrate. I talked about melatonin supplements and how many of them are not even within their listed dose. And also melatonin is a hormone. So when you start playing with even a mild one like that, you start playing with mild synthetic hormones. Children actually during the pandemic were hospitalized for melatonin overdoses because parents were feeding it to them thinking that it would calm them down. And in reality, what they should have tried was something just as evidence-based, tart cherry juice. It actually has tons of clinical trials. You can search PubMed, tart cherry juice concentrate, and it helps the body actually produce your own melatonin. So you can sleep and dream. And if you start taking this for the first time, you might actually start to dream like you were a child again. And it might be really surprising how rested you feel and the types of dreams that you have. That was one of the really cool things that happened to me. Another thing when looking at supplements here, we've got ascorbic acid. If you look at this picture of Emergen-C here, super orange, 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C, you would think it has oranges in it. And then you look a little closer and no, the ascorbic acid is actually usually from GMO corn. That's usually where they're getting it from. So it's a synthetic, it's an isolate. And instead, I recommend C from Nature, which is absolutely not from GMO corn. And it has the most vitamin C rich plant-based foods that are also highly bioavailable. So that's a really good one to take, especially in the winter when immune systems are dipping. I'm a big fan of C from Nature. And finally, just to conclude, In case I didn't get the message across, my mission is to support organic farmers who in turn are supporting us. They're supporting our gut health. Purium is a company that I have truly resonated with on a deep level because of that, because the owners are really doing all the right things to actually replenish the soil, to create products that help us detoxify the most toxic herbicides known to man, and also to create a world where we have more consumers that are investing in this, to prove to the food system that there is a market for individuals who are not going to pay to be poisoned anymore, and who are going to take back their gut health so that we can digest all of the plants and we can all thrive. So thank you. That's all from me. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining.
Thank you, Sarah. Wow, I'm so excited because so much of what you brought was what I've been feeling about how do we navigate all of these corporate colonizations of our gut. And it really is to choose the organic farmers and to choose the companies that are standing up for us. And that's why we're here today. And I'm so grateful to meet you today.
Thank you so much.
Does anyone have any questions to ask Sarah while we have her here?
Opening up the floor, just taking a look.
Oh,
yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
Kevin. Unmute.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much, Sarah. That was amazing. I think I've seen that presentation a few weeks or months ago, and I thought it was amazing, and I love watching it again. So I had a question about, you were talking about the fact that we need to eat at least like 30 plants per week to have a diverse microbiome. So let's say we are consuming Purium on a daily basis, but it's always the same ingredients, right? So do we need like different kinds of plants to make it like as diverse as possible? Or if we stick to the Purium lifestyle and add like, let's say like a few other ingredients here and there, is that enough?
So the human body thrives when we surprise it a little bit. However, if somebody is new to the Purium lifestyle, I definitely recommend they stick to the core four, the ULT, which are, the Biomedic and the Apothecary I spoke about, but also super aminos and the Power Shake. I recommend you stick to that very strictly for at least 3 months in the beginning, for sure, because you want to actually get the nutrients in your body. And for some people, they're nourished for actually the first time in their lives, which is incredible to see. After that, I mix it up a little bit. Sometimes I do the dark berry protein. I'm a huge fan of Green Spectrum, which is just a powder that isn't as filling as the Power Shake, but it has so many different greens in it. There's still like 15 in there or something. Really good source of iodine too. So I'm always 1 week having one or the other. I'm going to be on a Power Shake week. I'm going to be on a Green Spectrum week. There's so many different things. There's one called More Greens that I really like as well. If you look at my freezer, I live in Mexico, so I have to put all my stuff in the freezer or it doesn't do so well. I have all the different types of green products. I've got the More Greens, I've got the Power Shake, the dark berry protein, and the Green Spectrum, sometimes with lemon, sometimes without. And then I have Aloe Digest, which is another one that's really good for the gut, that you can alternate with Biomedic as long as you've been on Biomedic for a few months first. It does do the same thing, but slower and less powerfully. So I just mix it up with all the different types of products. And, See From Nature, Biofruit, those are different ones. The Biofruit is a powder. So there's a lot you can do. There's even like the carrot juice. I really like that one too. So you can get your 30 plants a week by kind of phasing off, the Power Shake that you would normally take for a few weeks here and there. But for the first 3 months, I would be very strict on exactly that protocol. And after that, then I would start the really fun rotation that we're all on.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you for that question, Kevin. Does anyone else have any questions?
Just checking in. We are going to wrap up in a minute. If you do have a question, raise your hand. I do have a question.
Sure.
So say someone's eating some dairy, some meat, but they have a healthy lifestyle. They eat organic. They feel okay. What do you bring forward to their consciousness so that they can choose to even optimize? Like what's in their blind spot?
Well, first, I tell people if you're consuming dairy products, they should only be raw. You should have a local farmer who's your friend, and you should be fermenting your milk into kefir. And that would be the only form of dairy that I would recommend, because the lactose and the casein, which are the harmful components, get eaten up by the grains, and there's going to be good bacteria in there. So that would be step one. If you're eating animal products, make sure they're organic, make sure they're not full of hormones, antibiotics. And guess what? Almost every meat that you buy at the grocery store is going to be full of glyphosate. Almost all of them, because what are these farm animals raised on? Those crops that I showed you. And even the grass-fed label is mostly deceptive, because there isn't actually enough grass for farmers to do that. So even the grass-fed cows that get to go outside, who have a slightly better life, their diet is supplemented with feed, which is usually genetically modified, unfortunately. So Glyphosate detox is biomedic, is extremely imperative, whether you're on 100% plant-based diet, because you're probably going to get it if you're not eating organic from lentils and chickpeas and soy, and for an high animal-based diet as well, because that's what most of those animals are getting. And even actually they found glyphosate in venison, in the meat from wild deer, because of agricultural runoff from the farm. So actually even wild game was really contaminated. So that's why, for me, this is the most important product, because there doesn't seem to be anyone anywhere in the food chain that isn't negatively affected by glyphosate, even if you're literally in the forest hunting deer. So that is the most important thing. And then most adults today are not producing sufficient melatonin, which is why the tart cherry juice is a really, really powerful tool to add in. There's another one I didn't talk about tonight too, that we're out of time, so I won't go into it, but Super Amino 23. This is also, I think, one of the most interesting nutrition products on the market. They are pre-digested plant proteins. So even somebody with the worst gut health, no matter where you're starting from, you're actually going to absorb this, and it makes a really big difference. And for me, it's amazing. I find for skin benefits, like I don't use Botox, I don't use fillers, and I find that actually the super aminos, if I have a lot of those combined with all the nutrient dense foods, they're very collagen boosting, plus the dark berry protein, which is good for collagen. But I think the Super Amino 23, people really want it for the protein, which of course is amazing. But there's also a lot of collagen and skin boosting benefits as well, because we produce collagen through quality amino acids plus vitamin C. So that would be, get on the core 4, I would say, would be my suggestion to get somebody started and really start pulling the glyphosate out of your system.
I am so grateful. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And there's a few people that would love to get the slides from today. So if you maybe want to send them out to us, and we can get them to the group.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Power shake it up. Mwah!
Thanks for joining us today. Great call.